sex, making money, playing with a spinner, all this nonsensical stuff. And what do these things do? They stop a person from being able to focus. Now, as soon as you cannot focus, then you cannot learn. So, and the symptom of people who are completely under the modes of ignorance, it's hard for them to learn something. Yeah, they can learn the spinner, they can learn go on the internet and look at sex and pornography, but to do anything substantive for spiritual life, they can't do it. In fact, it gives them a headache. And therefore, eventually they avoid going to temples and churches. But yet, they would go to the temple of atheism. Now they have churches of atheism, right? So you would say, well, what do they do in the church of atheism? Well, they read Darwin instead of reading Bhagavad Gita. We all come from monkeys. They read famous atheistic authors who have written long books about how there's no God. And they sing songs like B.B. King songs. You ever hear of B.B. King? No. They're very famous black swinger music, right? All about sex. So, this is what they do in the atheist church. Then, after that, we discussed, how to get out of this mess. And therefore, we were reading the 7th canto, 9th chapter, 18th verse, where Prahlad Maharaj says, O my Lord Nrsingadev, by engaging in your transcendental loving service, meaning bhakti yoga, in the association of devotees, meaning real devotees, not phony devotees, who are liberated souls. And he says, they're hamsas. Hamsa means swan-like, because the swan knows how to separate milk dissolved in water. That's a hamsa. So the hamsa devotees know how to see the presence of Krishna everywhere in the material world. That's like separating milk dissolved in water. And he says, I shall become completely uncontaminated by the association of 3 modes of material nature and be able to chant the glories of your Lordship. So what keeps us in the material world? This was the main subject we discussed. Tripir gunamayer bhaver ebisarvam idam jagat mohita janati mam imam param avyayam. That is the 7th chapter, verse number 14, which says that Krishna says, everyone in this world is overwhelmed by the modes of material nature, and thus they don't know me, who am transcendental to these modes. I'm sorry, that's 7th chapter, 13th verse. And he says, deluded by these 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So we studied this verse yesterday. So, in order to know Krishna, you must be on the same platform as Krishna. What is that platform? Transcendental to the modes of material nature. And even in the mode of goodness, one can understand some things about Krishna. But we explained that there's a difference between understanding and realization. Like, for example, many people, in fact, all people know, because it's written on every cigarette, if you smoke, you'll get cancer. Did everyone stop smoking? No. So they understand, but they haven't realized. They might realize when they get cancer. And say, oh my God, I should not have smoked. But it's too late then. So you see, there's a difference between understanding and realization. Everybody understands so many things. Do they actually follow it? Very few. Very few. Like, for example, there was one man, he was an Irish man. He came to New York City for the first time. He flew in from Ireland, and he was walking around on 5th Avenue and Broadway in New York City, and there's so many lights, and there's movie theaters, and there's, palaces of Maya. New York City is full of palaces of Maya. And he was really feeling good. It's his first time in America, this big city and famous city. And he's walking down the street, and he sees this attractive girl, and he looks at her and smiles, and she looks back at him and smiles. And then he says, "Hello," in his Irish accent. And she said, "Hi." And he said, "Well, my name is so-and-so." He said, "Well, my name is so-and-so." So they started talking. Make a long story short, they ended up in his hotel room. And the next morning when he woke up, she wasn't there. But she wrote on the wall, "Welcome to the world of AIDS." Now that was a chilling thing for him. When he goes back to Ireland, after a couple of months, he has an AIDS test, and he has it. So, is that a real story? Yes, it is a real story. It's not made up. So, what happened? He got zapped on his first trip to America. In the first couple of hours of his great vacation, he caught AIDS and went home to Ireland with it. Okay? So this is Tribir Gunamayer Bhavir. In order to get AIDS, in order to come to America, and instead of having a great time, you end up having AIDS, you have to be completely under the modes of material nature, totally an illusion. You have to be subject to the 5 types of ignorance, completely forgetful of Krishna, to act so, and there's only one word for it, crazy. Did you print out, Prabhu? Where did you give? Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. So now you can follow what I'm saying. This is the notes from yesterday's class. So yesterday we started by the verse 14:6 that explains the mode of goodness. It's better than the other modes. It's illuminating. In other words, you can learn something in the mode of goodness. Why? Because you're regulated, you avoid gross sinful activity, you have an interest in self-realization. So you can learn a lot of things in the mode of goodness, as opposed to the mode of passion and ignorance. In the mode of passion, you're not interested so much in spiritual things unless you can make money. Right? So if someone sees a way of making money by being spiritual, they'll take up spirituality, but not really to get purified in order to make money. So that's the ustadi business. Anyway, but the problem with the mode of goodness is one becomes conditioned by the sense of happiness and developing knowledge, and they get puffed up, and they don't develop love of God. So there's a danger in the mode of goodness. That's why it's a mode of goodness that conditions people to the material world. So we have the whole verse and purport there. And then we went on to the purport to 14:7 that explains the mode of passion. It's characterized by attraction between man and woman for man. And this is called the mode of passion. So when the mode of passion increases, one develops a hankering for material enjoyment and wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a person in a mode of passion wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family and nice children and wife and house. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his actions and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, society, or vice versa, to please the husband, etc., and to keep up his prestige, one has to work very hard. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standard of the mode of passion. Formerly, the advanced condition was considered to be in the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, as the previous verse explains, then what to speak of those entangled in the mode of passion? Impossible to be liberated. The mode of ignorance is, and then the mode of ignorance is due to ignorance. The cycle of suffering begins by ignorance, and ignorance leads to the seeds of sinful desires. The seeds of sinful desires lead to actual sinful activities, which lead to sinful reactions, which at first are unmanifest, called aparabdha, and later they become manifest. And when they become manifest, one begins to suffer. And one suffers by being born ugly, like me, or deformed, or being born in a poor family, or having legal problems, or having money problems, or born dumb and stupid, and remaining like that most of their life, and so forth. These are all symptoms of mature sinful reactions. And then there's the subtle sinful reactions, the inability to control sex desire and dreaming about it all the time, and also having horrible dreams, having nightmares. Those are subtle sinful reactions, which will lead later on to actual sinful reactions. And then after all that suffering, what remains is the tendency to sin again. The tendency to sin again. So this is the cycle of suffering. And then because of that tendency to sin again, one, even though they suffered so much, they will sin again and continue the cycle another time, either in this life or in the next life. So, under the spell of ignorance, people are incapable of understanding things properly. They always take the truth to be the untruth and the untruth to be the truth. That's a symptom of the mode of ignorance. They believe things that were never true. And they don't believe things that are always true. That's the influence of ignorance. And then Prahlad Maharaj, therefore, in 7.9.18 says that by engaging in devotional service in the association of real devotees who are already liberated, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature. Now, the whole question is, how can you recognize someone if they're actually liberated? And that was where we more or less ended up yesterday. And we started to answer that question. Yes, Pranay, did you do your homework? You said yesterday you weren't going to do your homework. Okay. Well, let's hear what you wrote then. The homework was how to become liberated, and Arush also did it. So that's all right. That's all right. Go ahead, Pranay. So wait a minute. We have a microphone for Pranay. We want to hear what you said, what you wrote.
.54. Arjuna asked, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence?"
Transcendence.
Lord Krishna responded to Arjuna by telling him that a rich man has his symptoms, by which he is known as a rich man. But
okay, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, go ahead. A rich man has symptoms by which he's known as a rich man. Go ahead. Don't mumble your words. Speak slower and louder.
But a man by which he is known as, But a man who is in Krishna conscious, Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. Also, the devotees only speak for Krishna consciousness.
Okay, a man in Krishna consciousness, or a Krishna conscious man, has specific symptoms, right, by which he is known, right? And number one, most important symptom is
he only speaks of Krishna and
exactly
Krishna.
Right. Doesn't talk nonsense. He always talks about Krishna. Go ahead.
He also responds to Arjuna saying that a fool is only discovered by talking and undiscovered by not talking. But as soon as he talks, he reveals who he is, even if he is wearing a fancy outfit.
even if he's well dressed, has a tie, suit, cufflinks, a Gucci suit, and Florsheim shoes, and drives a Tesla. But as soon as he speaks, you know he's a fool. Go ahead.
To be more specific, what Krishna says is that a Krishna conscious man or woman speaks only of Krishna and matters relating to him. 2.55. In this verse, it says that the Bhagavatam affirms that any person fully in Krishna consciousness will have good qualities of the great sages. Therefore, that is one of the points of the very pure symptoms of a liberated person. Another symptom is that a fully engaged Krishna conscious devotee should be able to control their senses according to plan. A liberated person...
According to their plan, which is, their plan is to go back to Godhead. So they control their senses and mind to do that. Yes.
A liberated person... Another liberated person's symptom is that they have no sense desire resulting from petty materialism. To conclude...
They have no desire for sense gratification derived from petty. Petty means, disgusting and insignificant materialism, right? Petty means really, really small. Yeah.
To conclude, these are the symptoms of a liberated person.
Good. Very good. Okay, give the microphone to Arush. Let's see how he did his homework. Okay, he turned it off. 1 second. Turn it back on.
2.54. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks. He speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him.
Very good.
2.55. Gives up desire for sense gratification by engaging himself in Krishna consciousness. Another note from 2.55. Always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord.
Very good. Very good. Yes. So these are good lessons to learn when you're young. You don't want to wait to be my age to learn these lessons. I'm still learning, by the way. What?
What does it mean to be satisfied in oneself?
Yeah, that is satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. That's what it means. Rather than acquired money and sense gratification. Right? Okay. And then Prahlad Maharaj says also, "O Lord Nrsimhadev." Okay, so that was by engaging in devotional service in the association of devotees, he can rise above the influence of the modes of material nature. So, how to rise above the cycle of, or how to free ourselves from the cycle of death, which is full of miseries and sufferings? Well, we should contact the same sampradaya as Prahlad Maharaj. Which Vaishnava sampradaya is Prahlad Maharaj in? We discussed this yesterday. Which one? Huh? Brahma sampradaya, right? Which one are we in? Same one. We're in the same sampradaya as Prahlad Maharaj, right? That's a great honor, isn't it? To be in the same sampradaya as Prahlad Maharaj. So, now there are other bona fide sampradayas. There's the Sri Sampradaya, there's the Kumar Sampradaya, there's the Rudra Sampradaya. All four persons, Brahma, Lakshmi, the four Kumaras, and Lord Shiva, they all heard the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita from Krishna. That's why they started these Vaishnava Sampradayas, and they're bona fide Vaishnava Sampradayas. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, there's Shiva Bhaktas that smoke marijuana, and well, yes, they're not in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. They're in the Rudra Sampradaya, is a bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya, but Lord Shiva has demons who are his devotees also, but they're not in the Sampradaya. They have their own Sampradayas, which are not Sampradayas. Sampradaya means they're following in the footsteps of Krishna. So if they are not following in the footsteps of Krishna, following his instructions, it's not really a Sampradaya. Okay, so everyone's deluded by the modes of material nature, therefore we don't understand Krishna. But if we rise above the modes of material nature, then we can understand Krishna. And how to do that? We studied verse 1426. Mam chayo vibhicharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And Prabhu, from now on, every page has to be numbered. Okay? Because these are long number of pages. I want to be able to refer to which page they can open to. Yeah. So this verse is very famous. It explains how to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death and the modes of material nature. Because we said, unless you come to the same level of Krishna, it doesn't mean you're equal to Krishna, but on the same level. Just like if I'm on floor 1 of a skyscraper and you're on floor 18, will I see you? What do you think, Arush? No. Well, what do you think, Pranay? No. So, we can be in the same place, the same address, let's say 1422 28th Avenue, right, in Sammamish. But you're on floor 1 and I'm on floor 2. Will we see each other? Even though we're in the same place, we won't see each other. So, in the same way, if I'm a human being and a jiva, an eternal soul, that doesn't mean that I'm going to know Krishna. Because I can be in the first floor under the influence of the modes of material nature, and Krishna is on the second floor, which he is here, completely free of the modes of material nature. I won't be able to understand him unless I come to the second floor and become free of the modes of material nature. Just like when people want to do nonsense in the temple, they walk out of the temple room and they go downstairs. There's a reason why they do that, right? Because it's not so easy to do nonsense in the temple room. I mean, some people still do nonsense in the temple room, but it's harder, right? So they go downstairs and then they start talking nonsense and, playing tag or whatever they want to do. So you have to be on the same level of Krishna in order to understand Krishna. You cannot be influenced by the modes of material nature and think that you can understand Krishna. You can understand some things, but you will not have realization of it. Okay. And how to come up to the level of Krishna, always be engaged in devotional service. Therefore, the highest principle of logic in Krishna consciousness, you don't have to study logic the way they teach it in the schools, because it's all nonsense. The highest logic is anukuyasya sankalpa pratikuyasya varjanam. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject everything unfavorable. Then you are the top logician in the universe. You have perfect logic in everything you do and think. You don't have to learn, syllogisms and this thing and that thing. You read a book of logic, you get confused, right? You've taken logic courses, Prabhu? No. Have you ever seen logic course books? What did you think about it? It's nonsense. You get more confused. That's a fact. But if you just follow this, anukuyasya sankalpa pratikuyasya varjanam, then you're the best logician. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness, reject everything unfavorable. You see the difference in material, education, and spirit? And the reason you read those logic books and get confused, because they're all based on Aristotle's original work. And Aristotle differed from his guru, Plato. Plato was a Mayavadi devotee. There are such, not a Maya, he was an impersonalist devotee. I just insulted him. He was an impersonalist devotee. Aristotle became a materialist, but high-class materialist. And he's the father of modern logic and modern science in the West. If you study, huh? Yes. Yeah, because he laid the logical basis of science. You know, he was a brilliant man, but he was a nonsense. You know, you can be brilliant and be a nonsense. Yes. Logic? Okay, you look 1866 in the purport. 1866. Bhagavad Gita, 1866 in the purport. Anukuyasya sankalpa pratikuyasya varjama raksisya titi vishvaso gotrite varanam tata atmanikse pakarpanya sadvida what's that last name? Sadvida Saranam Gati. Yeah. The 6 points of surrender. Yeah. You see it? In the purport. 1866. Sadvida Saranagati. Yeah. So the first two lines, you don't have to read any book on logic. That first two lines are so pregnant with meaning that they cover all logic in the material universe. Anukuyasya sankalpa pratikuyasya varjana. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness, reject everything unfavorable. So is a spinner favorable for Krishna consciousness? No. It just takes your mind away. Anything that takes your mind away from Krishna is rejected. Okay. So then, yeah. I can't hear you.
In my life, most things I'm doing are making me come closer to Krishna.
Are not.
If they're not taking me away, it's waste.
Prabhu, that was the first major step towards self-realization. It's a serious dilemma. But good news is, it's not difficult to make everything, through the principle of dovetailing, positive for Krishna consciousness. That's the good news. It just requires a little bit of adjustment. Not radical adjustment, a little bit of adjustment. It's just like, let's say you fill a whole notebook up, usually they have like 100 pages, right? With lined pages, right? You fill it up with zeros, every line. How much does that equal? 0. But then your son comes and says, "Hey, Dad, this is good. Why'd you put so many zeros?" You say, "Oh, well, I was just, passing time." You say, "Oh," and then he puts a 1 in front of all of them. Does it become a significant number? Yeah, just by putting 1. So just by adding Krishna into your life, all the zeros become significant. That's not difficult. Even your son can do that, right? You just add Krishna, 1, in front of all the zeros. Why don't you write 10 zeros now? You write 10 zeros. Is that 10? Okay. How much is that? Huh? 0. It equals what? 0, right? Now put 1 in front of it. 1 in front, not in back. In front. Yeah, not in the back. So did you put 1 in front of all the zeros? Okay. Now, 1 with 1 zero is 10. 1 with 2 zeros is 100. 1 with 3 zeros is 1,000. 1 with 4 zeros is 10,000. 1 with 5 zeros is 100,000. 1 with 6 zeros is 1 million. 1 with 7 zeros is 10 million. 1 with 8 zeros is 100 million. 1 with 9 zeros is 1 billion. And 1 with 10 zeros is 10 billion. Wow, now that number became really important, right? So all you have to do is just add Krishna in front of all the zeros. It becomes significant. It's simple, isn't it? It's not complicated. Okay. So then, what else did we discuss yesterday? And then we'll begin today's class. Yeah. We discussed, another part. I did mention, and it's not here, Prabhu. I did mention 16th chapter 1 to 3, which are the transcendental qualities of a devotee. And then after that, we went to chapter 2, verse 54 to 61, which explains in depth how to recognize a person who's transcendental to the modes of material nature, right? And both of you did your homework, and you basically mentioned the first two, but you didn't mention the most important thing about the second one. The first one simply is Prajahati Yadakama, where it's explaining, where Arjuna is asking the question to Krishna, how can I recognize someone who's transcendental to the modes of material nature? How does he walk? How does he talk? And how does he, what language does he use? How does he sit? So in other words, if someone walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and looks like a duck, what do you think it is, Arush? A duck, right? So you can recognize someone by their qualities. So if someone talks nonsense, walks nonsense, dresses nonsense, even though they're a human being, what are they? Nonsense. Exactly right. You tell from the qualities of the person. And number one quality is how they talk, right? So after asking this question, Arjuna says, Kim asita rajeta kim, tell me, what are these qualities? And Krishna says, Prajahati yadakaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani avatmana tustis stita pragyas tadochyate. So now we're starting today's class. The second chapter, 55th verse. And Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, said, O Partha, O Arjuna, when a man gives up all varieties of desire, meaning desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So, what does mental concoction mean? Is it like a smoothie? No.
It's like a thing that you believe, which is
Yeah, it's something you make up. Concoct means you make it up. Yeah. And a mental concoction, you make it up in your brain, in your mind, right? Like, I've told this story many times. One time I met a person, I said, you believe in God? He said, no. I said, you don't? He said, no. He said, when I was a little boy, I believed in God. But when I went to college, I read a book by a PhD that said we all come from chimpanzees. Now I don't believe in God. And this is true. This is true. I actually met that guy. I asked him, and that was his answer, right? So I said to him, hey man, you ever see anyone born from a chimpanzee? He said, nope. Then how can you believe it? He said, no, because the PhD said so. PhD, right? One time I was looking for a farm, and this real estate agent I called him up, and he was showing me some property, and he gave me his card. He said, Eddie Jones, PhD. I was thinking, wow, he's PhD, but he's a real estate agent. Something must have. So I said, Eddie, I said, what'd you get your PhD in? And he laughed. He said, it means post-hole digger. Now, you know what a post-hole digger is? You see, Americans have a real sense of humor, right? I mean, not the Americans that live in the cities. The Americans that, live in the country, they have a real sense of humor. They're the real Americans. A post-hole digger, I mean, they make this thing you can buy it in Home Depot. It has two big handles like this, right, connected to a rod, right? And on the bottom you have two metal things that look like this, right? And you stick it in the ground, and you can go like this. You open the rods, and it closes those metal things, and it pulls dirt out. And you can make a hole to put a post in. It's the way you dig holes, right? It's called and he said, I got my PhD in post-hole digging. Just to show how funny these guys are. I mean, this guy was hilarious. But he's right. These PhDs, they're the dumbest people you've ever met in your life. I mean, they're smart as far as material knowledge goes, but as far as understanding what the purpose of life is, they're the dumbest people in the whole world. They write books like Dr. Jacques Monod. He had a PhD and he had a Nobel Prize. He had a Nobel Prize. And he wrote a book, La Chance et la Nécessité, which means chance and necessity. In this book, he proved that there's no God, that material creation just happened by accident. You see, I mean, this guy's the dumbest guy on the earth. Dumbest guy in the history of the world. And he's a PhD and a Nobel Prize winner in biochemistry. You see? So when we showed the book to Prabhupada, and we said, he proves that there's no God, Prabhupada. I mean, he didn't prove there's no God, right? But he thought he did it, right? And he said, well, what is the book about? He said, well, the book is about how there's no God, everything happens by chance. I said, oh, I said, interesting. He said, but his book didn't happen by chance. See, he writes a book, everything happens by chance, but his book didn't happen by chance. So you see how clever and brilliant Prabhupada is, Completely decimated that guy, destroyed that guy with that one statement, right? This shows how stupid people are. Even though, and maybe in biochemistry he's a brilliant scientist, but he's stupid. Dr. Jacques Monod. You look up on the internet right now. Jacques, Jacque, Monod, Monod. Look up chance and necessity. Put that in there. It came up. No. Put it, chance and necessity in English. It's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's there. The bottom. It's the PDF on the level of the file.
Yeah. So there's a whole thing about his book.
And it's on natural laws of
No, but you on Wikipedia, it talks about there's a whole article about it, Prabhupada decimated this guy in 1 second.
1970, right, when Prabhupada.
Yeah. Okay, so the first answer by Krishna of how to recognize a liberated person is he gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification. Gives them up, all. And all these desires for sense gratification, they're produced by mental concoction, mental constructs in the mind. They're not actually real. I'll be happy if I make money. I'll be happy if I get this position in Microsoft. I'll be happy if I go on vacation to North Korea. There was an American guy who went on a vacation to North Korea. Can you imagine how stupid you have to be? And he saw this poster on the street, right? Huh?
He stole it from the his hotel room.
Oh, in the hotel room. There was some poster. He took the poster to take it back and show it to his friends in America. The Korean immigration people or police in the airport saw it. They arrested him. They put him in jail. They beat him to a pulp every day until his brain completely stopped working. And then they finally let him out after 2 years. He came back to the United States and died right away. When he was convicted in the trial in North Korea, he started crying like a baby. Because he realized that, these people are going to kill him. And they did. What was his fault? First of all, you have to be the dumbest person on earth to willfully go on a vacation to North Korea. Can you imagine how stupid they are?
Do you know the name of the company you organized? They're called trips that your mom would never want you to go.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what they call it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's how they advertise.
So anybody who doesn't respect his mom will definitely go on that trip. You see. So, how can we apply Krishna conscious logic to this dilemma? Should I or should I not go to North Korea? Huh? Why? But why? You have to use logic here. Why? Well, no, you can always do something for Krishna anywhere. No, because the whole government in North Korea is demoniac. They're all demons. And there's a good chance that you could make an honest mistake and end up in jail and end up dead. And that's exactly what happened to this American guy. He ended up dead. Okay, so that's a mental concoction. He thought, if I go to North Korea, I'll be happy. It was a mental concoction. And he was going there for sense gratification, right? And when the mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, how do you find satisfaction in the self alone, Prabhu? By virtue of? Yes, spiritual knowledge and self-realization. Not material knowledge and sense gratification. Right? By the way, will those two things satisfy you? Let's think about it. Let's say you become Jacques Monod and you get a PhD in microbiology, and then you get a Nobel Prize. You know how much they give you if you win the Nobel Prize? $1 million. Yeah. So he got the money, he got the prize, right? And then the crowning glory of his life, he wrote a book, There's No God, Everything Happens by Accident. Right? So, you say the man's an idiot. Right? Okay. The Bhagavad, let's read. Okay, who's going to read this purport? Yes. What? Yeah, give him the microphone. Give him the microphone. These sessions are being videotaped, so no one will hear your question without the microphone.
I think the people who selected him were the bigger idiots.
That's true. That's true. But see, no, he didn't get the Nobel Prize for the book he wrote on that we all come. Everything happens by accident. He got it for his scientific work, right? So he did something that pushed science further into ignorance. Yes, but then he thought, he's such a big guy, now he can write a book and debunk God. Right? So yeah. By the way, you know who Mr. Nobel was?
Yeah. Inventor of TNT.
Yeah, inventor of TNT. And no, dynamite, not TNT. Dynamite. Yeah. So I mean, he pushed forward destructive war. Yeah, he made a lot of money inventing dynamite.
And then he spread reports that this thing would be so potentially harmful to the world
Yeah, and I'm gonna reward demons that do research like he did, finding all different types of things that actually may be potentially harmful for humanity. Although at first they think it's good. Just like the atomic bomb. After Fermi and the other people who worked on the atomic bomb, and what was the main guy? Oppenheimer, yeah. After they actually made it, they regretted it. Because it was used by the military guys to, they used it on Japan. They threw three atomic bombs on Japan and killed massive number of people and caused tremendous amount of suffering. So then they regretted it. That's scientific research. Okay, so who's going to read this purport? Pranay? No. Second chapter, verse 55, the purport. Yeah. Now we did cover this yesterday, but we'll go over it again. Yes.
The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualifications, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concussions.
Of what? Of his own mental concoctions. Right.
Yeah. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental caution.
Okay, question. Giving up all sense desires. Does that mean you give up all desires? Arush? No? Which desires do you give up? Yes, right? Which desires do you retain? Pranay. Desires to please Krishna. Right. Now, if you give up all desires, including the desire to go back to Godhead or please Krishna, that's equal to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Who can explain that? You know what that means, Garush? Throwing the baby out. Let's say, imagine when you were a baby and your mom and dad are giving you a bath in a basin, right? And when they finish, they say, oh, we got to get rid of the dirty water. So they throw the basin like that, but you're still in it. And you get thrown out with the dirty water. Is that a smart thing to do? No, it's completely dumb, right? So, someone can read this, I'm going to give up all desires. Even the desire to go to the temple and hear class and chant Hare Krishna and please Krishna. Now, is that like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, Pranay? Yes. Is that a smart thing? That's really dumb. Yeah. So we want to get rid of the junk desires, but we want to keep the bona fide desires to please Krishna. Okay, Hari, stop sticking your finger in your mouth. Sticking your finger in your mouth is equal to sticking it in your... Where? Yes, it's equal to it. The mouth is just as filthy as the anus, although most people are, oh no, that's not true. But it is. And I'll give you an example, and then you have to wash your hand. One time this lady came to me, she was a big fan of my products, especially the tooth powder, And she said, Uncle Harry, I have a complaint. I said, what's your complaint? She said, well, I use your tooth powder, but I got some cavities, and I had an infection in my mouth. I said, you did? It was by using my product? She said, well, I can't think of any other reason. I said, you got a boyfriend? She said, yeah, I got a boyfriend. I said, do you kiss each other? He said, yeah, all the time. I said, what kind of teeth your boyfriend have? He said, well, he doesn't have good teeth. I said, that's your problem. He transferred his dental problems to you by kissing you. What? Are you kidding me? I said, no. I said, you can get infected by kissing another person who has a dental problem. She went nuts. Right in front of me, she called up her boyfriend and said, I'm never going to see you again the rest of my life. And a month later, she called me up and said, you were right. She said, my teeth are much better now. That's a true story. That's a true story. So you see, the mouth is just as infected as the anus. So you stick your finger in the mouth and then touch something, you contaminate it. So that's why you should always rinse your mouth after eating and brush your teeth at least two or three times a day, and keep your mouth clean. And use Uncle Harry's products. No, you don't have to. Yeah. So, go ahead, Brian. Artificially.
Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts.
Okay, you know what that means?
No.
Okay. Artificially, such desires cannot be stopped. In other words, if you just say, I'm not going to have any more desires, it won't work. You'll have desires. However, these desires for sense gratification will subside. Subside means go away or become less without any extraneous efforts, without doing any, without being like Superman, right? Superman can do super feats. Simply by Krishna consciousness, by engaging in Krishna consciousness. Now, people can keep those, Prabhu. Oh yeah, they're for people. Simply by being Krishna conscious and activity, they'll go away. Okay. And we'll finish up right after the class. Extraneous means out doing things that are
by realizing himself. As
Okay, answer to your question, Prabhu. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Okay? Become satisfied within oneself. Go ahead. Such a transcendentally situated person
has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord.
Haribol. Okay, so in the next verse, Duke sanavigna mana suke suvigata spriha vitaraga bhaya krodha stitadir munir uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So let's just repeat that. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, which are miseries of this body, miseries caused by other bodies, miseries caused by natural catastrophes, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So this attachment, fear, and anger are symptoms of a person who's still full of material desires. And therefore, there's another verse that says, Vitaraga bhaya krodha man mayamam upasrita bahavo jnana tapasa puta mahadbhavam agataha. Fourth chapter, 10th verse, which says, one who is free from attachment, by a krodha, fear and anger, and vitarga bhaya krodha man mayamam upasrita, and whose mind is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and who is taken like complete refuge in the Lord. Many bahavo jnana tapasa, many persons in the past, jnana tapasa, became purified by this knowledge, puta madbhavamagata, and attained transcendental love for me. So this is what happened to Sanjaya. He became purified by this knowledge of Krishna, by the mercy of his spiritual master. And then he attained this transcendental love for Krishna, by which he's able to see Krishna all the time. So that's 4th chapter, 10th verse. And here, in the 2nd chapter, it's saying, Vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dir muni uchyate. One who's not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So we see that we experience life mostly in the mind, not so much in the body, the senses. We experience it much more in the mind. And when the mind is purified of material attachments, then we can experience the spiritual world, which is also present, but we just can't see it because we're distracted so much by the material, let's say, prospects of sense gratification. Okay, so then we'll read. Let's see, who wants to read? You want to read the purport? This 2nd chapter, 56th verse.
The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion.
It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasav rishir yasya matam na bhinnam. But a sthit dhir muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The sthit dhir muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation.
Wow.
He is called Prashant Nishesh Mano Rathantar, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvam iti sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord. Thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination.
Wow. That's the main point. He's always steady in his determination to continue in devotional service. Because he's not attached or detached. He's simply dedicated to Krishna, regardless of the situation. So this is a transcendental position.
Prabhu, question.
Yeah.
I was thinking attachment one should get rid of, which means one should be detached, although Prabhupada here says Krishna conscious person has neither attachment nor
Because detachment is the flip side of attachment. It's just hatred is the flip side of love. So they're related. They're not different. They're both related to material desire. The material desire for love is you want to be successful. But from that same love, when it's frustrated, you develop hatred. So both things keep you in the material world. They're not. So the devotee is neither attached nor detached. He's dedicated to Krishna without attachment or detachment.
But like, doesn't Prabhupada say in page 130 at the bottom, detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. So you think detachment is a good thing, yeah?
No.
Based on this?
No, because look what Arjuna did. He detached himself from the battle of Kurukshetra and refused to follow Krishna's order. Was that a good thing? He was willing to live the rest of his life suffering in some cave in the Himalayas, in disgrace. But that's the flip side of attachment. It's not spiritual. And you can be detached. Let's say, this is what the Mayavadis do. They become detached from sense gratification, but they don't become engaged in devotional service. They become engaged in self-improvement, attaining liberation from the cycle of birth and death by merging into the impersonal Brahman, where there's no service of Krishna. That's the only place where there's possibility of service of Krishna in the material world, even in hell. There's service to Krishna, of course, in the spiritual world. There's no service at all in the Brahmajyoti. So for a Vaishnava, merging into Brahmajyoti is worse than hell. Because even in hell, you have the possibility to engage in devotional service. See? And how do you attain Brahmacharya? You detach yourself from everything, including Krishna's service. Therefore, that's nonsense. So that type of detachment, although it looks good, there's no more gross sense gratification, but it's a subtle sense gratification. Right? It's the flip side of sense gratification. So it's a function of sense gratification. That detachment is a function of sense gratification. But being dedicated to Krishna, whether in happiness or distress, that's a transcendental position. Now, where will you hear these explanations? You will not hear them in a normal setting. People don't understand these things. They think, oh, detachment is good. That's the Mayavadi position. They're detached from everything. Again, they're throwing who out with the bathwater? Right. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're throwing their possibility of becoming Krishna conscious out the window by this radical renunciation. Okay, so did we finish the purport? Yes, you did. And homework for next week. Homework. Huh? Yeah, okay. Homework is, based on this verse 256, explain the difference between the detachment of a Mayavadi to sense gratification and no, detachment of the Mayavadi from sense gratification and the mindset of the devotee who continues using his senses. The Mayavadi will try and nullify the use of his senses and mind. Yes?
So what you're saying is that, what do you mean by detachment?
The Mayavadis say that this whole world is Maya. It's all illusion. Therefore, I should just meditate and not use my senses and my body in any endeavor in the material world. I should just meditate, beginning 10 minutes every day, increasing to 1 hour, eventually increasing to 24 hours, right? And go into a deep state of meditation. And what are they meditating on? The light. You see? Huh? The mindset of the devotee is he doesn't deny the use of the senses. He doesn't deny the existence of the material world. He engages his senses and mind and the material world in the service of Krishna. So for the Mayavadi, he's in Maya. The devotee is in Maya because he's using his senses and he's interacting with the material world, where the Mayavadi is giving it all up. Yes, Arush, what was your question? Okay, homework is explain the difference between the detachment of the Mayavadi and the mindset of the devotee. These are like college level questions, aren't they? Yeah, but these kids can understand. They just need a little bit of help. They can understand. It's good to understand these, right, Hari? You going to do your homework for next week? You are? You're not going to forget, like, as soon as you walk out that door there? No. Did you write it down? Okay, next time you have to write it down. Don't depend on digital technology. You know why? Because at any time it could crash. But if you write it down on a piece of paper and hold on to the paper, it'll never crash. Unless you like drop it in the toilet or something, you know. Okay, so we stop right there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Who else can give this knowledge? This is unbelievable, the knowledge Prabhupada is giving us. It's amazing. Each one of these purports is enough to go back to Godhead, if you understand it. Hare Krishna.